Okay, I'm going to try to show you how to do this on my phone recording because I can't get Zoom or Google to want to record the screen correctly or so that it traces and you can follow the mouse. So I'm going to try to do this on my phone and see if you can see it okay. So the basics of reconciling Xactimate to QuickBooks is to make sure that any updates that happen here in Xactimate reflect the same information as in QuickBooks. So you're going to be looking at a few pieces of information to reconcile those two databases. One is, as we talked about, you're going to be looking at this date modified in this column here. So you're going to want to look at the prior day's activity to update what any salesperson has changed from the previous business day. So on Mondays, you'll have several days you'll have to go back. You'll probably have to look at Friday and Saturday. You may possibly see a Sunday if somebody worked remotely and updated something. A few things to keep in mind is just because an estimate shows up as being recently modified doesn't necessarily mean that anything actually changed. That could just mean that a salesperson opened the estimate to look at something and then saved and closed, and that'll make it record as a modification. So a lot of the jobs that show up for you to look at when you're reconciling could possibly be just projects that were opened and closed. So you're just going to verify that nothing changed. So if we look at Mayfield, for instance, this looks like it was changed on the 5th. The estimate is $98,542.90. And if we go into QuickBooks and we look at this job for Mayfield, which is this 24-0010-2, so we'll go into the construction company since that's a construction number, and we will find this customer. If you don't want to scroll, I'm sure you've probably found out by now, you can just type any piece of the customer's information up here. So you could type in part of the job number, last name, anything you have. So if I weren't actually on this customer, let me scroll off of it. So I happen to be sitting on this job instead. If I just go up here and I know that the last few digits of the job number happen to be 0010, and then I can hit search, it'll bring me to any customer that has that piece of information in it. This one only has one customer, happens to be the one that we're looking for. And we'll look at this estimate value. So this estimate value says $98,542.90. And we can go to here and see that that matches what is currently here in Xactimate, matches what is in QuickBooks for that customer. So there's nothing we have to do. If we go back to Xactimate and we'll look at King. So that job number is 24-0063-2. So I'll go back to QuickBooks, and rather than scroll around, I'm just going to type in the information I have for that customer to get to it kind of quickly. And so they have an estimate in here for $8,001.83. I'm going to go to Xactimate and see what Xactimate has. For King, there's an estimate here for King that's now $12,329.45. So that first triggers me to believe that this estimate did actually change. But I'm also going to look at the estimate number here. This estimate number tells us which estimate they're working in, and there could be multiple for each customer. So before you update an estimate, you want to make sure that you are looking at the right estimate name in both Xactimate and QuickBooks to make sure that you update the right one. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to highlight and I'm going to copy. So I'm going to Control C, copy, and I'm going to go back to this job, and there is an estimate in here, and I'm going to see what this estimate is labeled. So this estimate is labeled just the job name, no dash option 2 or AWA or, kitchen. It's got nothing else labeled after it, so we know it's the same estimate that they're looking at in Xactimate and working on in Xactimate here. So we know this estimate did actually change. So then we'll go back to QuickBooks, and since I have that dollar amount copied, I'm just going to highlight where I need to change, and I'm going to paste it in. The keyboard shortcut for pasting is Control V like Victor. So Control C like cat is copy. Control V like Victor is paste. So if I paste that in there and I hit tab, it'll update everything and we can just hit save and close. That estimate is now reconciled to Xactimate. We don't want to add this note. It'll pop up this information basically saying, hey, do you want to add this note in here that your estimate changed from $8,000 to this new value, and that's a change of this value? We don't want to have all that extra text in the estimate. At this point, it's not important. So that estimate is now been reconciled. So let's look at the next one. This is for Christoph. So that's a design center estimate, and we'll go look at this customer 24-5027. We'll just type 5027 in here. Find Christoph. So there's a few estimates here in Christoph. So there's one for $32,355.84 and one for $2,365.69. So we're going to want to make sure that we look at the right estimate in Xactimate and QuickBooks to make sure that anything that may have changed, we update the correct one. So back in Xactimate, this one is the estimate that is just the job number, okay? And the estimate value is $2,365.69. I'm going to copy this in case I need the information, but something that tells me I may not need to, I'm still going to check, but this estimate is in completed status instead of in progress like other ones. If it's in completed status, that typically means that the estimator has sold that project and has turned in paperwork, or you have gone in and printed out the category summary to break down everything into individual line items so that the contract can be created off of the correct value. So this may have already been updated, but we're going to check just in case. So we will go back to QuickBooks and we're going to see this estimate here for $2,365.69. I'm going to open it. You see how this job number is the same tag as the estimate tag or name label in Xactimate? And see how it's already broken down, all these lines. So we don't have to do anything with this because it matches the value for this estimate label and number in Xactimate. Everything matches, so we don't need to update anything. But we verified that it was correct. If for some reason there is a difference, that's when you will make a note for yourself. And you can either do that in the Excel sheet that you push from Xactimate out into Excel, make a note, color it a different color that tells you to come back to it. whatever works for you, and email that estimator or salesperson and say, hey, came across this estimate, this number, this is the value in Xactimate, this is the value in QuickBooks. Can you let me know which is correct and which needs updated? And that just takes a few minutes. They usually reply pretty quickly, and then you can go back to it and make whatever changes need done. So the next one we're going to look at is for Salvino. And I'm noticing that this estimate number has the job number dash insurance. So that may mean that there's multiple estimates going on for this customer. There might be insurance work that's being done. There may be private work that's being done at the same time. Sometimes an insurance company needs an estimate for their insurance claim portion so they can pay that customer, or they can pay us. And there may be other work separate from this estimate. So we're going to look and see what's going on here. So this job number is in the middle here, 0058. So I'm going to go back to construction, type in 0058. Salvino, that's the customer I'm looking for. And we can see that there are multiple estimates inside this customer. They've got a lot of work going on, a lot of different options probably. So we're going to go look and see if we can find this estimate. I'm going to copy this value so I don't have to come back to it. And I'm going to look and see if any of these estimates say the job number dash insurance. So I'm just going to go through and open them. That one says revised 2, so that's not the estimate we're looking for. This one says AWA number 1, so that's not what we're looking for. This one's just the job number, so that's not it. This one says the job number plus total roof, so that's not what we're looking for. And this is the job number and partial roof, so that's not what we're looking for. So we're going to create a new estimate now because we've determined that none of the estimates in QuickBooks match the estimate name of the job number dash insurance, or INS, in Xactimate. So you will not want to change any estimate in QuickBooks and change the name of it. So when you're updating, you're only going to update if this matches the name that's in Xactimate. Don't ever take an estimate in QuickBooks and change this name. If it doesn't have an estimate in QuickBooks that matches what's in Xactimate, you need to set up a new estimate. Because if you change this, now we won't reconcile to what's in Xactimate, and we've lost track of that estimate matching up in both databases. So we're going to set up a new one because there is no estimate that matches what we are looking for to match with Xactimate. So I'm just going to go up here. I'm going to do new transaction. Oops, not that button. Go to estimates. I'm going to look and see this estimate was done on 4/5. We're going to type in TO for total only. When they're in pending status, we just do total only. There's no sense in doing all the work of breaking it down until it's sold. I'm going to paste in the value of that estimate. Now I'm going to go back to Xactimate, and I'm going to grab the name here. So I'm just going to highlight this. I'm going to do Control C to copy it. And I'm going to go here in the estimate box in QuickBooks, and I'm going to do Control V and that pastes it right in that box. Okay. Now we need the price list. This customer started back in 2023. They may be using a price list from 2023, or they may be using a current price list. That's up to the discretion of the salesperson and the approval of Bruce if it's been a long time. Usually estimates are only good for a certain number of months before we have to update that pricing, but we'll look and see. So in order to see that, I'm clicking on this estimate, and over here, the eyeball, like we talked about, gives you kind of a preview. That's where you can change the job or estimate number here. If you're giving it a new number for a customer, you would hit edit and give it that new number. But to open up and see some details, we're going to click on this box. And this will help us open the estimate to see some of the details of it. So we'll hit run when that pops up. And this is kind of opening the estimate. And this is also where you can see if you're not sure if it's a remodel, if it's an insurance job, if it's flooring, if it's kitchen. This is where you can also kind of get some clues to what label to put on the end of a job number. Those -2, -4, -10, or 11. So if we, on this first page that opens up is the insured info. If we scroll down through here, we will see what the type is. And this says add, that's an abbreviation for addition. So this job number, or this estimate, like it is, this customer, is labeled a -2, which is additions. Okay. So we know it's an addition. Now I'm going to click on this parameters page, and this is going to give us the price list that the estimator used right here. So this estimator is choosing to use price list from 2023 when the customer originally came to us. That is not always the case, typically not the case. So you want to make sure you check for every new estimate that you look and see what price lists they're using. So again, I've highlighted it. I'm going to hit Control C to copy it. I'll go back to the estimate we started setting up in QuickBooks. I'll click on this estimate price list area, and I'm going to do Control V, and then we'll paste it in there. Okay. So now we're done setting this up. We'll just hit save and close. So now there's another estimate added to here. This estimate may be needing to be sent to an adjuster or something. That's for the salesperson to decide what needs to happen. They may not need you to send information for them or not, but now we've got this additional estimate set up for this customer. Okay. Now these customers here, Mandy was working on, I was noticing the name, not a structure that would be a new customer lead or additional estimate. So I clicked on this eyeball to see more information. And it says walk-in customer test. And the next customer says walk-in customer test 2. So to me, that tells me that the estimator was probably working on something, maybe needed to get information to a customer that walked in, give them a ballpark figure of some sort. They were just messing around trying to figure out information for themselves, maybe. So what I did is I sent an email to Mandy and asked her, do these 2 customers in Xactimate need a job setup? And I just sent her the names of the estimates. And she'll get back to me, let me know. She may say, no, that was just for information only. I was just trying to figure some stuff out, ignore it. Or, hey, yeah, it's actually for maybe a retail customer. Or this customer that already has a job, Margola, maybe they're looking at some options and they need to get added. I'm thinking most likely because it says test, she's probably going to say no. they don't need setup and she was just looking at something on her own. This is the customer that this morning you had talked to me about that Mandy needed a job set up. So what I did is I clicked on this eyeball and this eyeball here, and I hit edit, and I changed the estimate name to the job number that you had told Mandy it was going to be, okay? Then I took this estimate value and I looked up the price lists and everything ahead of time. So we're going to go to 5034. You can see that I put that estimate in here this morning. So there's the job number, the estimate number right here. I had pasted this in here from Xactimate. That way you don't transpose numbers, it happens all the time. So I just copy and paste. A lot of information gets copied and pasted so that we don't make a data entry error, and it's just faster as well. So you can see that when I'm doing this reconciliation, I'm just going back and forth between Xactimate and QuickBooks. I don't print out that list. You definitely can if it helps you to have it in front of you. I've just been doing it for so long that it's easy for me to do that. But if you need to print it or put it into Excel, that's totally fine. You know, you'll just click on this export list like you've done and export it. And then we know it'll pop up in our notifications when the report is ready. If you miss this link, if we don't get the opportunity to click on it before it goes away, it's right here in this notifications bell. And then we'll click on this link and then I'll open it up into Xactimate, or I'm sorry, Excel. These cells have information too great to show, so I'm going to click on this little spot here. It'll highlight the entire sheet. I'll go to one of these rows and I'll just double click when it turns into a crosshairs, and that will expand everything so that you can see all the information you need to see. And then you can delete from here, anything that you don't need to see, okay? And then you can use this as your list. You can keep it in Excel. You can print it out. I would save this. Every reconciliation you do, I would save it so that if somebody has a question, or if you have a question for yourself of what happened yesterday, or if you have a customer you need to go back to, you can reference the saved Excel sheet and know what activity had taken place in the past. It's just helpful. You will probably rarely look at it, but it's helpful to have if you need it, because things happen. So I'm not going to save this because I've already gone through and reconciled everything. So that's the basics of reconciling in Xactimate. The other portions to that were if there was a new file that somebody had, maybe this customer here said new file and a last name, that tells you that it corresponds to an active lead that's sitting in QuickBooks. So let me go back to QuickBooks here. So if this happened to say in Xactimate, new file cook, we know we need to go to this cook customer, give it an actual job number, set up the estimate, and then go into Xactimate, and click on this eyeball and change the estimate label to whatever the new job number is, and then get a file set up. As far as setting up a new file, you're going to update this here to the job number that you assign it. Kind of check over, make sure this information matches what's in Xactimate. You're going to then go to the additional info tab. You're going to put in here the estimate date. In awarded, you would type neither, or click on that drop down for neither. And then we'll go to the job info tab, and you're going to change this job type from active lead to whatever type of job it is, if it's cabinetry, flooring, and then you're going to change the status to pending. Okay, and then you would hit OK, and it would update everything, put in your estimate, make your physical file, all the things that you do once a new customer shows up with an estimate in QuickBooks. So I hope that maybe helps with some of your notes. I am going to go through the written instructions and clean them up and make sure that they follow the version of Xactimate that we're using, but the basics of it don't change, and the fact that we are making sure that what is in Xactimate matches what is in QuickBooks. So that's the main point of the whole thing, is just Xactimate matches QuickBooks. So whenever something is updated or added to Xactimate, we want to make sure QuickBooks has the same information.